The cursor blinked on Derek's laptop screen, mocking Naomi with its steady rhythm. She hadn't meant to snoop. She'd only wanted to order his anniversary gift while he was in the shower. But there it was, his email still open, and the subject line that stopped her heart. Operation Keep Her Home, update. Her hands trembled as she clicked. Derek, genius move with the family emergency strategy. Naomi bought it completely. She actually thinks her career is the problem, not us. Few more months, and she'll be too isolated to leave. Then you're free to do whatever you want. Brittany. Derek's response was worse. I know, right? She's so focused on being the good wife, she doesn't even notice. Just told her mom was worried about her stress levels. Got her to resign yesterday. She cried like I was her hero. This is almost too easy. Naomi's stomach lurched. The bathroom door opened. Babe, you see my phone? Derek walked out, towel around his waist, that smile she'd once loved plastered across his face. The same smile he'd worn 18 months ago when she'd tearfully handed in her resignation, believing she was saving their marriage. The same smile he'd used while destroying everything she'd worked for. Found it. She kept her voice steady, closing the laptop with deliberate calm. It was in the kitchen. Thanks. He kissed her forehead, and she forced herself not to recoil. What's for dinner? I'm starving. As Derek dressed, Naomi sat frozen on their bed, 1,000 memories suddenly reframing themselves. The mysterious family emergencies that always happened during her big presentations. His mother's convenient health scares that required Naomi's immediate attention. The subtle comments about her coworkers, poisoning her relationships one conversation at a time. You know Sheila only pretends to be your friend, right? She's probably after your position. Your boss mentioned you seem distracted. Maybe this job is too much. We barely see each other anymore. Is your career really worth our marriage? She thought he was being protective, caring, concerned about their future. He'd been systematically dismantling her independence. Naomi? Dinner? Derek called from downstairs. Coming. She stood, smoothing her dress, checking her reflection. The woman staring back looked the same as she had 5 minutes ago, but something fundamental had shifted. The grief would come later. Right now, clarity cut through her shock like ice water. She'd been earning $90,000 a year as a pharmaceutical sales director. Her team had exceeded their targets 3 quarters in a row. She'd been nominated for a Regional Excellence Award. And she'd given it all up because Derek had convinced her she was failing at everything. At dinner, she watched him. Really watched him. The way he dominated the conversation, talking about his cases at the law firm. How he barely asked about her day because, in his mind, she didn't have one worth discussing. The casual dismissiveness when she mentioned applying for part-time work. Maybe wait a few more months? I think you need more time to decompress. Code 4. I need you to stay dependent on me. You're right, she said, and his shoulders relaxed. I probably need more time. But time wasn't what Naomi needed. What she needed was a plan. After Derek fell asleep, she went to the guest room with his laptop. She screenshot everything. The emails between Derek and Brittany weren't just about manipulating her career. They documented a year-long affair, complete with hotel receipts charged to their joint credit card and discussions about Derek's exit strategy, once Naomi was properly dependent. Once she's been out of work long enough, no company will want her. She'll have a gap in her resume she can't explain. Even if she tries to leave, where's she going to go? Brittany's response, you're terrible, but brilliant. Naomi's jaw clenched. They'd gambled on her believing she had nowhere to go. They'd counted on her self-doubt, carefully cultivated over months of manipulation. They'd made one critical mistake. They'd underestimated what she was capable of when she finally saw the truth. At 3 in the morning, Naomi created a new email account and forwarded everything to herself. She photographed documents. She downloaded bank statements showing Derek's affair spending. She found a second credit card she didn't know existed, maxed out on gifts and dinners for Brittany. As dawn broke, she climbed back into bed beside her husband, her mind crystallizing around a single truth. Derek had tried to bury her potential because he couldn't handle her success. He'd wanted a wife who made him feel powerful, not a partner who is powerful in her own right. He was about to learn that burying someone only works if they stay down. Naomi had no intention of staying down. Derek rolled over, throwing an arm across her waist, and she lay perfectly still, planning. Not revenge in any violent sense. Nothing so crude. This required precision, strategy, the same skills that had made her excellent at her job. Derek wanted her isolated, broke, and dependent. She'd give him the opposite. She'd become so successful, so independent, so entirely beyond his reach that he'd realize his manipulation had only delayed her trajectory, not stopped it. And by the time he understood what she'd done, it would be far too late for him to do anything but watch. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, and Naomi watched it climb the walls. Somewhere in the city, her old mentor Patricia would be starting her day. Her former colleague Trevor would be checking emails. The industry she'd been forced to abandon hadn't disappeared. It had simply continued without her. Time to change that. Morning, Derek mumbled, kissing her shoulder. Morning, she replied, her voice sweet. I'll make breakfast. In the kitchen, she made his coffee exactly how he liked it, humming softly, playing the role of contented housewife one more time. But inside, Naomi was already 3 moves ahead, calculating her next steps with the precision of someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. Derek had orchestrated her professional death. He was about to witness her resurrection. And it would be spectacular. 18 months earlier, Naomi had stood in the conference room, laser pointer in hand, presenting her Q3 sales strategy to the executive team. The numbers on the screen told a story of consistent growth, strategic partnerships, and a team that exceeded every target. Regional sales are up 23%, she'd explained, moving to the next slide. If we maintain this trajectory and implement the hospital partnership program I've proposed, we're looking at 40% growth by year-end. The VP of Sales, Patricia, had nodded approvingly. Outstanding work, Naomi. Let's schedule a follow-up to discuss expanding your territory. That evening, she'd come home energized, ready to celebrate with Derek. Instead, she'd found him on the phone, his face grim. It's Mom, he'd whispered, hand over the receiver. She fell. They think she broke her hip. Naomi's celebration dissolved into concern. Oh no. Which hospital? St. Mary's. They want family there. He'd looked at her with those eyes she trusted. I know you have that presentation tomorrow, but... Of course I'm coming. She'd grabbed her purse, already mentally rescheduling. Family comes first. It should have been her first clue. Derek's mother, Carol, had been sitting up in her hospital bed, perfectly fine, complaining about a twisted ankle. Not a broken hip. A twisted ankle from her yoga class. Oh, honey, I told Derek not to worry you, Carol had said, confused by Naomi's panic. It's nothing serious. But by then, Naomi had already emailed her team, postponing the morning presentation. Derek had squeezed her hand. Better safe than sorry, right? This is what family does. The pattern had continued. A week later, Derek's father had chest pains. Naomi had left a crucial client meeting. Turned out to be heartburn. Then Carol's test results were concerning. Naomi had missed her team's celebration dinner. The tests were normal. Each time, Derek had been grateful, loving, praising her for prioritizing family over work. This is why I love you, he'd said, holding her close. You have your priorities straight. Not like these career-obsessed people who don't know what matters. The comments about her coworkers had started subtly. Sheila's married, right? I heard her husband's not happy about her travel schedule, probably causing problems at home. Trevor seems stressed. I bet this job is burning him out. You ever worry about that? Patricia's been divorced twice. Maybe she should have spent less time at the office. Naomi had dismissed it as workplace gossip until Derek started connecting it to her directly. You looked exhausted today. Is this job worth your health? We barely have time together anymore. Sometimes I wonder if your career is becoming more important than us. My mom mentioned you seem distant lately. She's worried the stress is changing you. Each comment was a seed of doubt, carefully planted. Naomi had started questioning herself. Was she becoming one of those people who sacrificed everything for a job? Was her marriage suffering? Was she losing sight of what mattered? The final manipulation had been masterful. 3 months before she quit, Derek had suggested marriage counseling. Just to reconnect. Make sure we're solid. The therapist, someone Derek had found, had asked Naomi about her work stress. Naomi had mentioned the long hours, the travel, the pressure to perform. And how does that make Derek feel? The therapist had asked. Neglected, Derek had said quietly. I love Naomi's ambition, but I miss my wife. We used to have time together. Now it feels like I'm competing with her job. The therapist had nodded. Naomi, it's important to consider whether your current career path aligns with your relationship goals. Sometimes we have to make choices about what we prioritize. Naomi had felt terrible. She'd been so focused on her targets and her team that she hadn't noticed her husband feeling abandoned. She'd gone home that night and looked at Derek, really looked at him, and seen what she thought was hurt in his eyes. I'm sorry, she'd said. I didn't realize how much this was affecting you. I just want us to be happy, Derek had replied. Maybe there's a less demanding position? Something that lets you have a life. Over the next month, the family emergencies had intensified. Derek's parents had needed help with everything. Carol's doctor's appointments, his father's car trouble, a leak in their basement, always during Naomi's work hours, always requiring her immediate attention. Her performance had started slipping. She'd missed deadlines, arrived late to meetings. Her team had covered for her, but she'd felt the shift. Patricia had called her in for a conversation. Naomi, you're one of my best directors. But lately, you seem distracted. Is everything okay? Just some family stuff, Naomi had said. I'm handling it. If you need to take some time. No, I'm fine. Really. But she hadn't been fine. She'd been drowning, trying to balance work that demanded excellence with family emergencies that demanded her presence. And Derek had been there every evening, supportive and understanding, suggesting maybe it was all too much. You don't have to prove anything, he'd said. We'll be fine financially. I got that promotion. And honestly, Naomi, you seem miserable. When's the last time you were actually happy? She'd thought about it. When was the last time she'd felt accomplished instead of stressed? When had work stopped being fulfilling and started being a source of guilt? Maybe you're right, she'd admitted. Derek had held her. You deserve to be happy. Not exhausted all the time. Not choosing between your family and your job. What if you took a break? Just a year or 2. Figure out what you really want. I worked so hard to get here. I know. But what's the point if you're miserable? If we're miserable. The resignation letter had been the hardest thing she'd ever written. Patricia had tried to talk her out of it. Naomi, you're making a mistake. You have real potential here. Don't throw it away. It's not throwing it away. It's choosing my priorities. And what about your team? They depend on you. They'll be fine. Trevor can handle it. Patricia had looked at her with something like pity. Just promise me you'll stay in touch. And if you change your mind, call me. I will. But she hadn't, because Derek had made sure she didn't have time. Suddenly, they were socializing with his colleagues constantly, hosting dinner parties, taking trips with his friends. Every day was filled with activities that revolved around Derek's life, Derek's career, Derek's needs. And Naomi had convinced herself she was happy, that this was what she wanted, that prioritizing her marriage over her career was the mature, healthy choice. She believed it right up until she found those emails and realized Derek had spent 18 months systematically destroying her confidence, isolating her from her professional network, and making her dependent on him. All while sleeping with Brittany and planning his escape once Naomi was properly trapped. Now, standing in her kitchen making Derek's coffee, Naomi understood every manipulation, every false emergency, every planted doubt. He'd played her perfectly, using her love and trust as weapons against her. But that game was over, and Naomi was done playing by Derek's rules. Naomi spent 3 days acting normal. She cooked Derek's favorite meals. She smiled at his jokes. She listened to his stories about the law firm with apparent interest. And every moment he was out of the house, she dug deeper. The emails between Derek and Brittany dated back 14 months, right around the time Derek had suggested marriage counseling. The affair had started at a firm retreat, apparently after too many cocktails and a conversation about their respective home lives. "My wife doesn't get it," Derek had written. "She's so obsessed with her career, she barely notices I exist." Brittany's response: "At least you're married. I'm 34 and single because I refuse to settle. Maybe we're both with the wrong people. Or not with the right person," Derek had replied. The correspondence had turned flirtatious, then explicit. They'd met at hotels during lunch hours, Brittany's apartment when Derek claimed to be working late, weekend conferences that Derek attended alone while Naomi stayed home with his parents. What made Naomi's blood boil wasn't the affair itself. Affairs were betrayals, yes, but at least they were honest about their dishonesty. What enraged her was the calculation behind it. Derek had deliberately isolated her before starting the affair. He needed her financially dependent and professionally disconnected, so she couldn't leave when she inevitably found out. The marriage counselor, the family emergencies, the careful erosion of her confidence, all of it had been preparation for his exit strategy. "When do you think you'll tell her?" Brittany had asked 6 months ago. "Not yet. She just quit her job. I need her settled into being dependent first. Then it won't matter if she's upset. Where's she going to go? No recent work history, no income. She'll have to accept whatever arrangement I offer." That's cold. That's smart. You don't end a marriage without planning your exit. Naomi had screenshot this exchange and stared at it for 20 minutes. The man she'd married, the man she'd trusted with her whole heart, had spent over a year plotting how to trap her in case she didn't accept his infidelity gracefully. He'd underestimated her significantly. On day 4, while Derek was at work, Naomi drove to Patricia's office. Her former mentor had retired from the pharmaceutical company, but now ran a consulting firm helping businesses optimize their sales strategies. "Naomi." Patricia stood from behind her desk, genuine pleasure in her smile. "I was hoping I'd hear from you."
"Come and sit down."
"How are you?" "I need help," Naomi said simply. "And I need it to stay between us for now." Patricia's expression shifted to concern. She closed her office door. "Talk to me." Naomi explained everything. The manipulation. The affair. Derek's plan to keep her dependent. By the time she finished, Patricia was pacing, her face flushed with anger. That calculating piece of... Patricia caught herself.
"Sorry."
"But Naomi, this is abuse. Financial abuse, emotional manipulation, all of it." "I know. That's why I need to be smart about this. I can't just leave angry. I need to rebuild my career first, protect myself financially, and make sure when I do leave, he can't control the narrative or the outcome." Patricia sat down across from her. "What do you need?" "Work. Remote work he won't know about. I need to rebuild my income, my confidence, and my professional network. I need to prove to myself that I'm still good at this."
"You were always good at this."
"You were one of the best directors I ever managed." Patricia pulled out her laptop. "I have 3 clients right now who need sales strategy consultants. The work is project-based, fully remote, and pays well. Can you start immediately?" "Yes." "Good. Because I'm still angry about losing you. Let's get you back where you belong." They spent the next 2 hours discussing projects. A medical device company needed to restructure their sales territories. A biotech startup needed to build their sales team from scratch. A hospital system wanted to optimize their pharmaceutical purchasing process. "These are all things I can do from home," Naomi said, reading through the project descriptions. "Derek won't even know."
"Exactly.
You'll work remotely, bills go to my firm, clients communicate through me. As far as Derek's concerned, you're home cooking and cleaning. When can I start?" "Today. I'll send the contracts this afternoon." Naomi's next stop was a law office on the other side of town. She'd researched divorce attorneys extensively, looking for someone with experience in cases involving financial manipulation and infidelity. Angela Chen's office was professional but warm. The attorney herself was sharp-eyed and direct. "Tell me everything," she said. "And don't leave anything out." Naomi showed her the emails, the bank statements, the secret credit card. Angela took notes, her expression growing grimmer. This is a strong case for fault-based divorce in this state. The adultery is documented. The financial manipulation is clear. We can argue that he coerced you into leaving your job through fraudulent pretenses. What about assets? Everything depends on what you've accumulated during the marriage and how it's titled. Walk me through your finances. They spent an hour reviewing documents. The house was jointly owned. The savings account was joint. The retirement accounts were separate, but accumulated during the marriage. Derek earned more now, but only because he'd forced Naomi out of work. Here's what we're going to do, Angela said. You're going to open a new bank account in your name only. As you earn income from consulting, it goes there. We're going to establish that you're financially independent before we file. We're also going to document every penny Derek spends on his affair. Won't he notice if I open a new account? Not if you use a different bank. His name isn't on it. You're not withdrawing from joint accounts. You're depositing your earnings somewhere safe. Completely legal. What about the house? Do you want to keep it? Naomi thought about the house she'd loved, now tainted by Derek's betrayal. Every room held memories of manipulation.
No.
I want a clean break. Then we'll negotiate its sale, or let him buy you out. Either way, you get your equity share. Plus, given his affair, we can argue for alimony despite the short duration of marriage. I don't want his money long term. I just need enough time to fully rebuild my career. Angela smiled. I like you. You're thinking strategically. Most people come in here wanting to take everything out of spite. You want justice, but also independence. Derek thought he could control my life by controlling my finances. I'm not giving him that power. Over the next 2 weeks, Naomi established her new life in secret. She opened a checking account at a credit union across town. She set up a home office in the spare bedroom, claiming she was organizing old files. She told Derek she was taking online cooking classes when she was actually in video conferences with clients. The consulting work was challenging and energizing. She'd forgotten what it felt like to use her skills, to solve complex problems, to feel confident and valued. The medical device company was impressed with her territory restructure plan. The biotech startup hired her to train their new sales team. The hospital system wanted her to lead a 3-month optimization project. Within a month, she'd earned $12,000. Money Derek knew nothing about, sitting in an account he couldn't access. She'd also joined LinkedIn again, something Derek had discouraged. You don't need that. You're not looking for work. But now she did need it. She reconnected with former colleagues. She posted about consulting availability. She rebuilt the professional network Derek had systematically destroyed. At home, she remained the perfect wife. She kept the house immaculate. She had dinner ready when Derek came home. She listened to his work stories and pretended to be impressed. She even met Brittany at a firm event, shaking the other woman's hand with a smile that gave nothing away. So you're Derek's wife, Brittany had said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. He's told me so much about you. Funny, Naomi had replied smoothly. He hasn't mentioned you at all. The flash of uncertainty in Brittany's expression had been satisfying. But Naomi had moved on quickly, chatting with other spouses, playing her role perfectly. That night, Derek had been particularly affectionate. I'm proud of you, he'd said. You seem so much happier now. Relaxed. Like you're finally okay with everything. I am, Naomi had said. And she was. Just not in the way Derek thought. She was okay because she had a plan. She was okay because every day she was getting stronger, more independent, more financially secure. She was okay because Derek's trap was becoming her launching pad. 2 months after finding the emails, Naomi attended a pharmaceutical industry conference, telling Derek she was visiting an old college friend. She networked aggressively, handing out business cards, pitching her consulting services, reconnecting with people who remembered her work. Naomi Reynolds, one executive had said, recognition lighting his face. You were at MedTech Solutions, right? Outstanding sales director. What are you doing now? Consulting, she'd replied confidently. Helping companies optimize their sales strategies. We should talk. We're restructuring our entire sales division. By the conference's end, she had 3 new potential clients and a job offer she wasn't quite ready to accept.
Not yet.
She needed to be completely secure before she made her move. No vulnerabilities. No dependencies. When she finally served Derek with divorce papers, she wanted to be so financially and professionally stable that his manipulation meant nothing. She wanted to be able to walk away without looking back. And she was getting closer every single day. 3 months into her secret consulting career, Naomi had earned $47,000. It sat in her private account, growing steadily, a cushion of security Derek knew nothing about. She'd established relationships with 8 different clients, built a reputation for delivering results, and received her first referral from a satisfied customer. She was also documenting everything about Derek's life. Angela had been clear, the more evidence they had, the stronger their position. So Naomi photographed credit card statements before Derek filed them away. She copied receipts left carelessly in his jacket pockets. She noted every late-night work call, every weekend when he claimed to be at the office, every unexplained expense. The pattern was damning. Hotel charges every Thursday afternoon. Restaurant bills for 2 when Derek claimed to be working through lunch. Gifts purchased that never made it home. The secret credit card had a current balance of $18,000, all affair-related expenses. Derek wasn't even being careful anymore. He'd gotten comfortable in his deception, confident that Naomi was too isolated and dependent to notice or care. His mistake. Naomi also investigated Brittany. The other woman was an associate at Derek's firm, specializing in corporate law. Unmarried, no children, her social media filled with photos of expensive dinners and luxury hotels. Many of those locations matched Derek's credit card statements. What struck Naomi wasn't jealousy, but rather cold calculation. Brittany had known Derek was married. She'd actively participated in his strategy to keep Naomi dependent. In the emails, she'd even joked about it. "Is she suspicious yet?" Brittany had written. "Not even close. She actually thanked me for being so understanding about her wanting to quit. I'm a genius. You're terrible. I love it." These weren't people who'd fallen accidentally into an affair. They'd plotted. They'd strategized. They'd treated Naomi's life as a game to be won. Now they were about to discover she'd been playing a different game entirely. "How's your documentation coming?" Angela asked during one of their regular meetings. "Comprehensive," Naomi replied, handing over a flash drive. "Everything's organized by date and category. Financial records, emails, text messages I recovered from his laptop, credit card statements, photographs." Angela reviewed the contents, nodding approvingly. "This is excellent work. When you're ready to file, we'll have everything we need." "I'm not ready yet." "Why not? You have proof of adultery, financial manipulation, and enough income to be independent. We could file tomorrow." "Because I want more than just a fair divorce settlement." Naomi leaned forward. "I want to be so successful when this happens that there's no question I didn't need him. I want to walk away, with my head high, my career thriving, and my life completely rebuilt. I want him to realize he didn't break me. He just delayed me." Angela studied her for a long moment. "You're not doing this for revenge." "No. I'm doing this for me. The fact that it proves Derek wrong is just a bonus." "All right. Then let's talk about protective measures. We need to make sure Derek can't drain joint accounts or hide assets before you file." They spent the next hour strategizing. Naomi would gradually reduce her direct dependence on joint accounts, using her consulting income for personal expenses while maintaining the appearance of financial unity. She'd document the balance of every joint account weekly. She'd secure copies of all tax returns and financial statements. "When you're ready, we'll file on a Friday afternoon," Angela explained. "That gives Derek the weekend to process before he can do anything legally. We'll also file for temporary restraints on asset disposition, preventing him from draining accounts or selling property." "What about the house? You're still living there?" "For now. But I'm looking for apartments. Something I can afford on my own." "Good. The moment you move out, document everything. Photographs of the house's condition, inventory of your belongings, copies of all keys. We don't want him claiming you damaged property or stole items. The preparations were meticulous and exhausting, but Naomi had learned from Derek's manipulation. Success required planning, victory required patience, and justice required being absolutely prepared. At home, the charade continued. Derek had no idea that while he was enjoying his affair, his wife was systematically dismantling the trap he'd built for her. He came home each evening to dinner, conversation, and a wife who seemed perfectly content. "You're in a good mood lately," he'd commented one night. "What's gotten into you?" "I think I finally found my rhythm," Naomi had replied truthfully. "Figured out what makes me happy."
See?
"I told you quitting that job was the right move. You were miserable there." "You were right," she'd agreed, hiding her smile. Let him think he'd won. The revelation would be more satisfying that way. Her consulting work continued to expand. The medical device company had been so impressed with her territory restructure that they'd hired her for an ongoing strategy role. The biotech startup wanted her to build their entire sales division. She was earning more than she had at her old job, and the work was more fulfilling because it was entirely hers. She also started attending industry events again, rebuilding the professional reputation Derek had tried to destroy. At a pharmaceutical leadership conference, she ran into her old colleague Trevor. "Naomi, where have you been?" He'd hugged her warmly. "We missed you at MedTech. The whole team asked about you." "Taking some time to explore consulting," she'd replied. "How's everyone?"
Stressed.
"They promoted Trevor to your position, but he's struggling. Patricia retired. Everything's chaos without you too." "That's too bad." Actually, Trevor had hesitated. "Are you interested in coming back? We have a VP position opening up. Regional oversight, strategic planning, team leadership. It's basically what you were doing, but expanded. The pay is significant." "How significant?" When he'd named the figure, Naomi had struggled to keep her expression neutral. "It was nearly double her old salary." "I'll need to think about it." "Of course. But Naomi, you were made for this work. Whatever made you leave, I hope you've worked through it. We need people like you." The job offer sat in her email inbox, waiting. Naomi wasn't ready to accept it yet. But knowing it was there, knowing her old company wanted her back at a senior level, gave her confidence an additional boost. Derek had convinced her she'd been replaced, forgotten, that her skills had an expiration date. He'd been wrong on every count. For months after finding those emails, Naomi received a call from Patricia. "I just got off the phone with Global Med Pharmaceuticals," her mentor said. "They're looking for a vice president of sales. They asked if I knew anyone. I gave them your name." "Patricia, I'm still technically married to a lying manipulator who destroyed your career." "I know. But Naomi, this opportunity won't wait. They want interviews next week. Even if you're not ready to accept, you should interview. Keep your skills sharp. See what you're worth." "What if Derek finds out?"
How?
"You'll schedule it during his work hours. You'll wear a business suit instead of the yoga pants I suspect you wear at home. You'll interview for a position you're absolutely qualified for. And if they offer it to you, you'll have options." Naomi had agreed. The interview was scheduled for a Tuesday morning when Derek would be in court all day. She'd stood in front of her closet that morning, pulling out the professional clothes she hadn't worn in over a year. The navy suit still fit perfectly. The heels still made her feel powerful. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. This wasn't the isolated, insecure housewife Derek had created. This was the woman she'd been before. The confident professional. The strategic thinker. The person who'd earned respect through competence, not compliance. "I'm back," she'd whispered to her reflection. "And I'm better than ever." The interview had gone exceptionally well. The hiring committee was impressed with her consulting portfolio. They'd loved her approach to sales strategy. They'd asked thoughtful questions about her career gap, and she'd framed it as strategic time spent building a consulting business. "We'll be in touch," the CEO had said. "But Naomi, between us, you're exactly what we're looking for. This job is yours if you want it." She'd driven home in a daze. A VP position, 6-figure salary, stock options, comprehensive benefits, Everything Derek had made her believe she'd never have again. That evening, she'd made Derek's favorite dinner and listened to him complain about a difficult client. She'd nodded sympathetically, all while knowing that soon, very soon, she'd walk away from this performance forever. Derek had mentioned Brittany casually, something about a case they were working on together. Naomi had smiled and asked if she seemed nice. She's fine. Smart lawyer. Nothing special. Nothing special. The woman he'd been sleeping with for over a year was nothing special. The woman he'd helped manipulate his wife for was barely worth mentioning. Naomi had excused herself to the bathroom and laughed silently. The entire situation was so absurd. Derek had destroyed her career, isolated her from friends, and gaslit her into believing she was the problem. All for an affair with someone he described as nothing special. When she finally served him with divorce papers, she hoped he'd remember those words. Because Naomi was something special. She'd always been. And she was about to prove it in ways Derek couldn't imagine. The job offer from Global Med arrived on a Friday evening. Naomi read it on her phone while Derek watched television, oblivious. Vice President of Sales, $140,000 annually, full benefits, stock options, company car, and a signing bonus of $25,000. She'd done the math immediately. With this salary, she could afford a beautiful apartment, pay off her student loans, rebuild her savings, and still have more disposable income than when she'd been married to Derek and depending on his salary. "You're smiling at your phone," Derek had commented. "Funny cat video?" Something like that, she'd replied, saving the email. She hadn't accepted immediately. Angela had advised caution. The moment you accept a major job offer, your financial situation changes. We want that change to happen right before you file for divorce, not months before. It's strategic timing. So Naomi had asked Global Med for 2 weeks to consider. They'd agreed, understanding that a VP position required careful deliberation. In those 2 weeks, she'd finalized everything. She'd found an apartment she loved, a modern 2-bedroom in a building with a gym and rooftop garden. She'd calculated moving costs. She'd scheduled movers for a day Derek would be out of town. She'd transferred enough money from her consulting account to cover first month's rent, security deposit, and initial furniture purchases. She'd also begun subtly extracting her personal items from the house. Photo albums that were hers alone. Her grandmother's jewelry. Books she'd collected over the years. Her college diploma and professional certifications. Everything that mattered, everything that was solely hers, quietly disappeared into boxes stored in Patricia's garage. Derek noticed nothing. He was too busy with Brittany, too confident in his control, too convinced that Naomi was exactly where he wanted her. "I have to go to Chicago for a deposition next Thursday and Friday," he'd mentioned casually. "Probably won't be back until Saturday afternoon." "That's fine," Naomi had said. "I'll keep busy." Thursday morning, she'd watched Derek pack his bag, accepted his kiss goodbye, and waited 30 minutes after he'd left to make sure he wasn't coming back. Then she'd called the movers. They'd arrived at noon, professional and efficient. Naomi had directed them with precision, pointing out every item she wanted moved. Her clothes, her personal electronics, kitchen items she'd brought into the marriage, furniture from her old apartment that Derek had relegated to the guest room. By 6 p.m., the house looked almost the same. The big furniture remained, the jointly purchased items, the things that belonged to their shared life. But Naomi's personal touches, her individuality, her presence had vanished. She'd stood in the empty space that had been her home office, looking at the bare shelves where her books had been, and felt nothing but relief. Her new apartment was everything the house wasn't. Bright. Modern. Hers. She'd arranged her furniture, hung her photos, set up her actual home office with proper equipment. This was her space. Her sanctuary. The foundation of her new life. Friday morning, she'd emailed Global Med's CEO. "I'm pleased to accept your offer." The response was immediate. "Wonderful. Welcome to Global Med. HR will reach out with paperwork and your start date." Her start date was 3 weeks away, which gave her just enough time for the final phase of her plan. Friday afternoon, she'd met with Angela. "I accepted the job. I moved out. I'm ready. Angela had pulled out the divorce papers, already prepared. All right, let's review everything one more time. They'd gone through each section. Naomi was filing for divorce on grounds of adultery. She was requesting equitable distribution of marital assets, which included the house, savings, retirement accounts, and Derek's secret credit card debt. She was requesting temporary spousal support for 2 years, enough time to fully establish herself in her new position. She was not requesting anything unreasonable, just fair, just what she deserved after Derek's manipulation. We're filing Monday morning, Angela said. Derek will be served at his office Monday afternoon. Tuesday, we have a hearing for temporary orders on asset protection. He's going to be furious. Let him be furious. You have documentation of everything. He has no grounds to contest any of this. Naomi had spent the weekend settling into her apartment, deliberately not checking her phone, not reaching out to Derek, not explaining her absence. Let him wonder. Let him come home to an almost empty house and panic. She was done explaining herself to him. Monday morning at 9 a.m., Angela filed the divorce papers. By noon, Derek had been served at his law firm. Naomi was in a coffee shop 3 miles from her new apartment when her phone started ringing. Derek's name flashed on the screen. She let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Voicemail. 6 calls in 10 minutes before he switched to texting. What the hell is this? You're divorcing me? Are you serious?
Call me right now.
Naomi, this is insane. Where are you? We need to talk about this. You can't just leave without discussing it. She'd blocked his number. Then she texted from her new phone, the one he didn't have the number for. All communication needs to go through my attorney. Her contact information is in the papers. She'd imagine his face when he read that. The shock. The anger. The realization that she wasn't the passive, dependent wife he'd created. That evening, Patricia had called. Derek showed up at my office. What? He was looking for you. He thought you might be staying with me. I told him I had no idea where you were and that he needed to leave. I'm sorry he bothered you. Don't apologize. I enjoyed watching him panic. Naomi, you should know he looked genuinely shocked. I think he actually believed you'd never leave. That was the point of the trap. Make me so dependent I couldn't. How does it feel? Being out. Naomi had thought about it. Liberating.
Terrifying.
Right. Tuesday morning's hearing had been brief. The judge reviewed Angela's evidence of the affair and financial manipulation. Derek's attorney, clearly unprepared for the level of documentation Naomi provided, had argued weakly that the divorce was premature and that marital assets shouldn't be frozen. The judge had disagreed. Given the evidence of substantial marital funds being used for an extramarital affair, I'm granting the motion for temporary asset protection. All joint accounts are frozen pending final settlement. Neither party can make withdrawals exceeding $1,000 without court approval. Derek had glared at Naomi across the courtroom. She'd met his eyes steadily, letting him see that she wasn't afraid. Outside, he tried to approach her. Angela had stepped between them. All communication through attorneys, she'd said firmly. Naomi, this is ridiculous. We can work this out. There's nothing to work out, Naomi had replied calmly. You manipulated me into leaving my career so you could control me while you had an affair. We're done. You don't understand. Brittany means nothing. It was a mistake. The only mistake was believing you when you said you loved me. Goodbye, Derek. She'd walked away, ignoring his calls, ignoring his attempts to follow. Angela had handled it, making it clear that any further contact would result in a restraining order. That night, in her new apartment, Naomi had poured herself a glass of wine and stood on her balcony. The city stretched out before her, full of possibilities. Tomorrow she'd start preparing for her new job. She'd continue building her consulting business. She'd reconnect with friends she'd lost touch with during Derek's isolation campaign. Her phone buzzed. A text from Trevor. Heard you're back in the game. Global Med's lucky to have you. Drinks to celebrate? She smiled and typed back. I'd love to. Another text, this time from Patricia. Proud of you, Naomi. You did the hard thing. Now comes the fun part. watching yourself soar. The hard thing. Leaving Derek. Rebuilding her career. Facing her fears about being alone. And starting over. But Patricia was right. The hard part was behind her. Now came the ascent. And Naomi was ready to fly. Naomi's first day at Global Med felt like coming home. She walked into the building wearing a charcoal suit and her favorite heels, carrying confidence she'd rebuilt piece by piece over the past 6 months. The receptionist greeted her warmly. Ms. Reynolds, welcome to Global Med. Mr. Harrison is waiting for you. James Harrison, the CEO, had been impressed with her during the interview. Now, as he walked her through the executive floor, he explained her mandate. Our sales have plateaued. We're not growing, but we're not losing ground either. That's dangerous in this industry. We need someone who can identify the problems, restructure the approach, and push us to the next level. What's your current revenue target? $200 million annually. We're at 185. Have been for 2 years. Naomi's mind was already working through possibilities. Territory optimization. Team motivation. Strategic partnerships. I'll need 2 weeks to assess the current structure and team performance. Then I'll present a comprehensive strategy. Take your time. But Naomi, I want you to know we brought you in because we need someone bold. Someone willing to make difficult decisions. If that means restructuring territories, replacing underperforming team members, or changing our entire approach, you have my backing. Bold. Difficult decisions. This was the kind of challenge that made her pulse quicken. Her office was spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She stood there for a moment, remembering the last time she'd had an office, the day she'd cleaned it out after resigning from MedTech. That day had been filled with regret and doubt. This day was filled with determination. Naomi threw herself into the work. She analyzed sales data, identifying patterns and problems. The company had 12 regional sales directors, each managing teams of 5 to 8 representatives. But the territories were poorly distributed. 3 directors were managing regions that should have been split among 5. 4 directors had territories too small to justify their salaries. The team structure was also problematic. Representatives received minimal training and even less support. Sales targets seemed arbitrary rather than data-driven. There was no clear career progression, no incentive for excellence beyond basic commissions. After 2 weeks of analysis, Naomi presented her findings to the executive team. We're not maximizing our potential, she began, displaying charts and graphs. Our territory distribution is inefficient. Our team structure is demotivating. And our sales targets are based on hope rather than data. She walked them through her proposed solution. Restructure territories based on hospital density and prescription volume. Reduce the number of regional directors from 12 to 10, but give them better defined regions and larger teams. Implement a comprehensive training program. Establish clear career progression paths. Redesign the commission structure to reward both individual and team performance. This will be disruptive short-term, she acknowledged. We'll lose some people who can't adapt. But within 6 months, I project we'll see 15% revenue growth. Within a year, we'll hit your $200 million target and exceed it. The CFO had concerns. This restructure will be expensive upfront. Training costs, severance for directors we're letting go, new hiring. I've budgeted for that, Naomi replied, distributing her financial projections. The upfront cost is $300,000. But the increased revenue will offset that within 4 months. By month 6, we'll be operating at higher profit margins than we are now. James Harrison leaned back in his chair, studying her. You're confident about this? I'm certain. I've implemented similar restructures before. The data supports it. Then do it. You have full authority. Implementing the plan was challenging. 2 regional directors resigned rather than accept new territories. Naomi replaced them with internal promotions, giving high-performing representatives their chance to lead. She personally designed the training program, drawing on her years of experience to create modules that were practical and results-focused. She also worked directly with the sales representatives, something the previous VP had rarely done. She joined them on hospital visits, observed their pitches, offered coaching. She learned their struggles, their frustrations, their ideas for improvement. "You're different from the last VP," one representative named Tasha had commented during a ride-along. She sat in her office and sent emails. "You're actually out here with us." "I was a sales director before this," Naomi explained. "I know what you're facing. My job is to make yours easier and more rewarding." Word spread quickly. The new VP wasn't just corporate leadership. She was one of them, someone who understood the work because she'd done it. 3 months into her tenure, the results were undeniable. Sales were up 12%. Team morale was higher. They'd successfully recruited 3 top performers from competing companies. The training program had reduced onboarding time for new hires by 30%. "You're exceeding expectations," James told her during a quarterly review. "The board is impressed." "We're just getting started," Naomi replied. "Q4 is when we really accelerate." She was right. By the end of her first year, Global Med's revenue had hit $210 million, exceeding targets by 5%. They'd opened 2 new territories and hired 15 additional representatives. The company's reputation in the industry had improved, making recruitment easier. Naomi had been featured in a pharmaceutical industry trade publication, discussing her approach to sales leadership. The article had generated interest from other companies, resulting in multiple job offers she'd politely declined. She wasn't interested in leaving. She was building something here. Meanwhile, her consulting work continued. Patricia's firm had grown, and Naomi served as a senior advisor, taking on select projects that interested her. Between her VP salary and consulting income, she was earning more than she'd ever imagined possible. She'd paid off her student loans completely. She'd established an emergency fund with 6 months of living expenses. She'd started investing in retirement accounts and a diversified portfolio. She was financially secure in ways Derek had tried to prevent. The divorce proceedings had moved forward steadily. Derek's attorney had tried multiple strategies to reduce his obligations. They'd argued that Naomi's high income meant she didn't need spousal support. Angela had countered that Naomi's current income was achieved despite Derek's sabotage, not because of anything he'd provided. They'd argued that Derek shouldn't be responsible for the credit card debt from his affair. The judge had disagreed, noting that marital funds had been used fraudulently. They tried to claim Derek deserved more than half the house equity because he'd been paying the mortgage alone for the past year. Angela had presented evidence that Naomi had been paying all household expenses from her consulting income during that time, effectively contributing to the mortgage indirectly. The final settlement had been fair. Naomi received her half of the house equity, half the retirement accounts, 2 years of spousal support that she'd honestly not need, and half the value of Derek's car. Derek was responsible for the affair-related credit card debt and his own legal fees. Most importantly, she was free. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday afternoon. Naomi left the courthouse alone, drove to her apartment, and changed into comfortable clothes. Then she called Patricia. "It's done. Officially divorced. How do you feel?"
Relieved.
"Ready. Like I just finished closing a door I should have shut a long time ago. Want to celebrate? I'm buying dinner." They'd met at an upscale restaurant, toasting with champagne. Patricia had raised her glass to Naomi Reynolds, who took a situation designed to break her and turned it into a launching pad. "You're an inspiration." "I just did what I had to do."
No.
"You did what many people never manage. You refused to be a victim. You fought back strategically. You rebuilt yourself stronger. That's exceptional." As they talked, Naomi realized how much had changed. A year ago, she'd been isolated, insecure, financially dependent, and believing she'd failed at everything. Now she was a successful executive, financially independent, professionally respected, and genuinely happy. Derek had tried to trap her. Instead, he'd forced her to discover strengths she didn't know she had. Her phone buzzed with a text from Trevor. "Board meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Your Q4 projections are on the agenda. Prepare for them to ask about your 5-year plan." They're planning for expansion. 5-year plan. A year ago, she hadn't been able to plan 5 days ahead without Derek's manipulation interfering. Now she was being asked to plan Global Med's future half a decade out. She smiled, typing back. I'll be ready. Patricia noticed her expression. Good news. Just work. But yes, good news. They want my 5-year strategy for company growth. You're going to tell them something ambitious, aren't you? I'm going to tell them we can triple our revenue if we're willing to expand into hospital partnerships and international markets. And can you? Naomi thought about her experience, her skills, the team she'd built, the track record she'd established.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's my girl. Now let's order dessert. We're celebrating everything you've accomplished. As they ate, Naomi reflected on the journey, the pain of discovering Derek's betrayal, the fear of starting over, the hard work of rebuilding her career, the determination to prove she was more than anyone's trap. She'd done all of it. Not perfectly, but persistently. And the best part? She was just getting started. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Naomi received an unexpected call from Angela. I need to meet with you. Something's come up related to Derek. They met at Angela's office that afternoon. The attorney's expression was serious as she spread documents across her desk. Derek's firm fired him. Naomi blinked. What? 3 weeks ago. Apparently, the managing partners discovered his affair with Brittany violated the firm's ethics policy. Associates and partners aren't supposed to engage in relationships that create conflicts of interest. She was working on cases he supervised. Why are you telling me this? Because Derek is claiming the divorce destroyed his career and he's requesting a modification of the settlement. Specifically, he wants the spousal support payments reduced or eliminated. Naomi felt anger flare. He destroyed his own career by having an affair at work. That has nothing to do with our divorce. I agree. But his attorney is arguing that the divorce caused him emotional distress that affected his work performance, leading to the termination. That's ridiculous. Angela smiled slightly. It is. And we're going to prove it. The firm's termination letter cites multiple instances of professional misconduct, all dating from before your divorce. Derek was written up twice for missing court deadlines. He billed personal expenses to client accounts. He used firm resources for personal matters. The affair with Brittany was just the final straw. How did you get the termination letter? Discovery. Once Derek filed for modification, we had the right to request documents supporting his claim. His attorney had to provide them, and they actually prove our point. Derek's career problems were self-inflicted and ongoing. Naomi reviewed the documents. The pattern was clear. Derek's professional issues had started over a year ago, during his affair, long before she'd filed for divorce. He'd been distracted, sloppy, and unethical. The firm had documented everything. What about Brittany? Also fired. She actually has it worse because she was part of the ethics violation and had her own performance issues. Last I heard, she's working as a contract attorney for a legal temp agency. Naomi felt a momentary flash of satisfaction before pushing it aside. Brittany's consequences weren't her concern. What do we do about Derek's request? We oppose it. I'll file a response showing that Derek's job loss was due to his own misconduct, not the divorce. We'll also note that he had ample time to find new employment and hasn't. We'll demonstrate that you fulfilled every obligation in the settlement and that Derek's current situation is entirely his own making. The hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Naomi prepared thoroughly, gathering her own employment records showing her success at Global Med. Angela's strategy was simple. Demonstrate that while Naomi had thrived post-divorce through hard work and professional excellence, Derek had failed through his own poor choices. The day of the hearing, Naomi dressed in a navy suit and arrived early. Derek was already there, looking thinner than she remembered, wearing a suit that was slightly rumpled. He avoided her eyes. The judge reviewed the evidence methodically. Derek's attorney argued that the divorce had caused severe emotional distress, affecting Derek's work. My client was blindsided by the divorce, the attorney claimed. He came home to an empty house, was served papers at work, and never had a chance to address the marriage's problems. This traumatic experience impacted his mental health and job performance. Angela's response was swift. Your Honor, Mr. Reynolds wasn't blindsided. He was conducting a year-long affair while systematically manipulating his wife into financial dependence. He used marital funds to support this affair, accumulated debt my client knew nothing about, and plotted to ensure she couldn't leave when she discovered the truth. When she found out, she acted decisively and legally. That's not creating trauma. That's establishing consequences. She presented the firm's termination letter. Mr. Reynolds' employment was terminated for multiple ethics violations, all documented before the divorce was filed. His affair with a subordinate associate, billing irregularities, missed deadlines. This is a pattern of professional misconduct, not the result of divorce proceedings. The judge studied the documents. Mr. Reynolds, did you have an affair with a colleague while married? Derek's jaw tightened. Yes, Your Honor, but... And did you use marital funds for this affair? Some expenses, yes, but... And were you terminated from your firm for ethics violations related to this affair and other professional misconduct? The affair was only part of. Yes or no, Mr. Reynolds? Yes. The judge turned to Angela. What is your client's current employment status? Ms. Reynolds is Vice President of Sales at Global Med Pharmaceuticals, earning $140,000 annually, plus bonuses. She also maintains a consulting practice. Her income has increased significantly since the divorce. And she's been making the court-ordered spousal support payments on time? Every payment on schedule, without complaint. The judge's decision was swift. Request for modification denied. Mr. Reynolds, you engaged in an affair, used marital funds inappropriately, and were terminated from your employment due to your own ethical violations. Your current financial situation is the direct result of your choices, not the divorce. Ms. Reynolds fulfilled her obligations to you and has rebuilt her career through her own efforts. The settlement stands as originally ordered. Outside the courtroom, Derek tried to approach Naomi. I know you probably think I deserve this. I don't think about what you deserve, Naomi interrupted calmly. I think about my own life, which is going very well. You should focus on yours. Naomi, I'm struggling. I can't find work. Firms won't hire me because of the termination. That's unfortunate, but it's not my problem. I thought maybe, since you're doing so well, you could help me. Put in a word somewhere or... Angela stepped between them. Mr. Reynolds, this conversation is inappropriate. You need to leave. I just need help. Naomi looked at him directly. You spent over a year making sure I'd have nowhere to go, no money of my own, no career to return to. You wanted me trapped and dependent. Now you're asking for my help? The answer is no.
Find your own way, Derek.
Like I had to. She walked away, ignoring his calls, feeling nothing but relief that this chapter was truly closed. That evening, she met with her team from Global Med for drinks. They were celebrating closing a major hospital partnership deal she negotiated. The contract would add $15 million in annual revenue. To Naomi, Tasha raised her glass, who negotiated the deal of the year and made it look easy. It wasn't easy, Naomi laughed, but it was worth it. As they talked and celebrated, Naomi realized she rarely thought about Derek anymore. The divorce, the betrayal, the manipulation, it all felt like something that had happened to a different person. The woman she was now wouldn't have tolerated Derek's behavior for a day. She was stronger, more confident, more aware of her own worth. Her phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Heard about the hearing. Victory looks good on you. It's not about victory, Naomi texted back. It's about moving forward. But Patricia was partly right. There was satisfaction in knowing that Derek's attempts to control the narrative, to blame his failures on her, had been rejected by the court. There was justice in him facing the consequences of his own actions. Most importantly, there was freedom in being so far beyond his reach that his problems didn't touch her life. The next morning, James Harrison called her into his office. I heard about your court situation yesterday. Naomi tensed slightly. It's resolved. It won't affect my work. I know it won't. That's not why I brought it up. He gestured for her to sit. Naomi, you've been with us a year. In that time, you've exceeded every metric, restructured our entire sales division, negotiated partnerships that are game-changing for the company, and established yourself as a leader. The board wants to talk about your future here. What kind of future? The kind that involves a promotion to senior vice president, a significant raise, and expanded responsibilities, including product development input. We want you helping shape the company's direction, not just executing sales strategy. Naomi absorbed this. A year ago, Derek had convinced her she had no future. Now she was being offered a senior executive position at a major pharmaceutical company. "I'm interested," she said carefully, "but I want to understand the full scope of what you're proposing." They spent an hour discussing the role. More authority, more pay, more impact. The opportunity to influence not just sales but product development, market positioning, and corporate strategy. "Take a week to think about it," James said. "But Naomi, I want you to know we see your potential. What you've accomplished here is just the beginning of what you're capable of." Walking back to her office, Naomi paused at the window. The city stretched out before her, full of possibility. A year ago, she'd stood in a different office, in a different company, and resigned because Derek had convinced her she was failing. Now she was being promoted because she was succeeding. The contrast was almost overwhelming. She pulled out her phone and texted Angela. "Thank you. For everything. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. For fighting for what I deserved. For helping me get free." Angela's response came quickly. "You did the hard part. I just provided the paperwork. Proud of you, Naomi." That evening, Naomi accepted the promotion. Senior Vice President. It had a nice ring to it. More importantly, it represented something Derek could never take away, proof that she was exactly as capable and valuable as she'd always been. His manipulation had delayed her trajectory, but it hadn't changed who she fundamentally was. And who she was, it turned out, was exceptional. Naomi had been Senior Vice President of Global Med for 8 months when she received an unexpected invitation to speak at the National Pharmaceutical Sales Conference in Miami. The conference was the industry's premier event, attended by executives from every major company. Being asked to keynote was a significant honor. "Your topic is transformative leadership in sales, building teams that exceed targets," the conference organizer explained. "We want you to share how you turned Global Med's sales division around. Your results have been noticed across the industry." Naomi prepared meticulously. She developed a presentation showcasing her restructuring strategy, the training program she'd implemented, and the results: 32% revenue growth in 18 months. She included case studies of representatives who'd been promoted, territories that had exploded in productivity, and partnerships that had opened new markets. The week before the conference, Patricia called. "I'm coming to Miami. I wouldn't miss this." "You don't have to." "Naomi, do you remember sitting in my office over a year ago, telling me you needed to rebuild your career? Now you're keynoting the industry's biggest conference." "Of course I'm coming." The conference was held at a luxury hotel on Miami Beach. Naomi checked in 2 days early to finalize her presentation and prepare. The night before her keynote, she attended the opening reception, networking with colleagues and industry leaders. Naomi Reynolds. A woman approached, extending her hand. "Christina Martinez, VP of Sales at Pacific Pharmaceuticals. I've been following your work at Global Med." Impressive doesn't begin to cover it. They talked for 20 minutes about sales strategies, market trends, and leadership challenges. Christina mentioned that Pacific was looking to expand their executive team. "If you're ever interested in exploring opportunities, we should talk. I think you'd be an excellent fit for our culture." "I'm happy at Global Med," Naomi replied, "but I appreciate the interest. Keep my card anyway. Things change." The next morning, Naomi stood backstage, listening to her introduction. "Our keynote speaker today turned around a stagnant sales division and drove it to record-breaking growth. She's innovative, strategic, and fearless in her approach to leadership. Please welcome Naomi Reynolds, Senior Vice President of Sales at Global Med Pharmaceuticals." The applause was warm as she walked onto the stage. 800 industry professionals faced her, some taking notes, others watching with interest. Naomi felt a momentary flutter of nerves before confidence settled over her. This was what she did. This was who she was. 18 months ago, she began, I took over a sales division that hadn't grown in 2 years. Talented people, good products, but stagnant results. Today, I'm going to share how we transformed that division into an industry leader. But more importantly, I want to talk about what it really takes to build teams that don't just meet targets, they obliterate them. For 45 minutes, she walked through her strategies. Data-driven territory restructuring, comprehensive training, clear career progression, empowering representatives to own their success. She shared specific examples, showed concrete data, and offered practical advice others could implement. Leadership isn't about controlling people, she said near the end. It's about removing obstacles so they can achieve what they're capable of. My job isn't to make sales. It's to build an environment where my team can make sales better than I ever could alone. The presentation ended to standing applause. During the Q&A session, questions ranged from technical details about territory design to philosophical discussions about leadership style. Naomi answered each thoughtfully, drawing on her experience. Afterward, she was surrounded by executives wanting to introduce themselves, ask follow-up questions, or exchange business cards. Patricia found her in the crowd, beaming with pride. You were magnificent. Every person in that room wanted to know how to replicate what you've done. The principles aren't complicated. Implementation is the hard part. That's what makes you special. You don't just theorize. You execute. Over the next 2 days, Naomi attended other sessions, networked extensively, and had several conversations about potential opportunities at different companies. By the conference's end, she had 6 job offers in various stages of discussion, all offering higher compensation and more authority than her current role. She wasn't particularly interested in any of them. She loved Global Med, appreciated the culture, and valued the relationship she'd built. But the offers confirmed something important. She'd established herself as an industry leader. Her reputation was strong enough that companies competed for her. Derek had tried to ensure she'd never work in her field again. Now companies were bidding for her services. Flying home, Naomi reflected on how far she'd come. The scared, manipulated woman who discovered her husband's betrayal seemed like someone else entirely. That woman had believed Derek's lies about her incompetence. She doubted her abilities and worth. This woman knew exactly what she was capable of. Back at Global Med, James Harrison called her into his office. I heard your keynote in Miami was exceptional. Several colleagues reached out to congratulate me on having you on our team. It was a good experience. The conference was well organized and the audience was engaged. I also heard you received several job offers. Naomi met his eyes steadily. I did. I'm not pursuing any of them. Good. Because the board wants to make sure you're committed to Global Med long term. We're prepared to offer you a new contract with a significant increase in compensation and stock options. We're also creating a new position, Chief Sales Officer. You'd be overseeing not just sales, but marketing integration and strategic partnerships. Essentially, all revenue-generating activities. Chief Sales Officer. C-suite level. A position that would make her one of the highest-ranking executives in the company. What would the compensation package look like? $220,000 base salary. Performance bonuses up to 50% of base. Stock options that vest over 4 years. Full benefits, including relocation assistance if you want to buy a house. Naomi calculated quickly. With bonuses, she could earn over $300,000 annually, plus stock options that could be worth significantly more if the company continued growing. I'm interested. Let me review the detailed offer and I'll get back to you. That evening, she called Angela. Remember when Derek said no one would hire me because of my career gap? I just got offered a C-suite position with a $300,000 potential compensation package. Angela laughed. I remember. I also remember you telling me that your revenge would be becoming so successful that his manipulation became irrelevant. Congratulations, Naomi.
You've achieved exactly that.
It doesn't feel like revenge. It just feels like my life. The life I was always supposed to have. That's the best kind of justice. When you're so far beyond what hurt you that it barely registers anymore. Naomi accepted Global Med's offer. The promotion came with a larger office, a better parking spot, and invitations to board meetings. But more than the perks, it came with respect. Her colleagues asked her opinion on major decisions. Her strategies shaped company direction. Her leadership was valued and trusted. She also expanded her nonprofit work. 6 months earlier, she'd established the Empower Women's Professional Fund, providing grants and mentorship to women rebuilding careers after domestic manipulation or financial abuse. The fund had helped 12 women so far, paying for professional certifications, providing business wardrobe, covering childcare during job searches. "You're changing lives," Patricia had said at a fundraiser. "These women would be struggling alone without your support. I was lucky. I had you, Angela, resources. Not everyone has that. I want to be what I needed when I was at my lowest." The fund had attracted attention from media outlets interested in stories about domestic abuse and recovery. Naomi had given several interviews, carefully avoiding details about her own divorce while emphasizing the broader issues of financial manipulation and career sabotage. One article had gone viral, discussing how abusers often systematically destroyed their victims' professional credibility to maintain control. The article mentioned Naomi's fund and her work helping women rebuild. Derek had seen it. She knew because her lawyer received a letter from his lawyer claiming the article portrayed him negatively and demanding a retraction. Angela's response had been succinct. "The article doesn't mention Derek by name. If he recognizes himself in descriptions of abusive behavior, that's his conscience speaking, not our client's defamation." There was no further communication. Naomi's new life was full and satisfying. She dated occasionally, though nothing serious yet. She'd reconnected with old friends, rebuilt relationships Derek had undermined. She traveled for work and pleasure. She invested in her apartment, making it truly her sanctuary. She had hobbies again: yoga, cooking classes, book club. She was happy. Genuinely, completely happy. Not the performance of happiness she'd maintained during her marriage, but real contentment with her life and herself. 2 years after discovering Derek's betrayal, Naomi looked back and barely recognized the woman she'd been. That woman had believed she was failing. This woman knew she was succeeding. That woman had questioned her worth. This woman knew exactly what she was worth. That woman had been trapped in a life designed by someone else. This woman was living a life she'd built herself. And it was spectacular. Naomi was reviewing quarterly projections when her assistant buzzed her. "There's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. Her name is Brittany Thompson." Naomi paused, stylus hovering over her tablet. Brittany, Derek's former mistress. The woman who'd helped orchestrate the manipulation that nearly destroyed her career. "Tell her I'm busy. She says she'll wait as long as necessary. She seems desperate." Naomi considered. She owed Brittany nothing, but curiosity won. "Fine. Give me 5 minutes, then send her in." She used those 5 minutes to center herself. Whatever Brittany wanted, Naomi wasn't obligated to provide it. This meeting would be on her terms. Brittany looked different than the polished attorney she'd been at Derek's firm event. Her suit was off the rack, her hair less carefully styled. She carried herself with none of the confidence Naomi remembered. "Thank you for seeing me," Brittany said, standing awkwardly near the door. "You have 10 minutes. What do you want?" "I need help. I'm applying for a position at a legal consulting firm. They do background checks, and they'll find out about my termination. I was hoping maybe you could provide a reference? Or at least not speak negatively about me." Naomi stared at her. "You're asking me to help you get a job? I know how it sounds, but I'm struggling. I've been contract work for 2 years. I can't find permanent employment because of the ethics violation. I've got loans, rent, bills. I'm drowning. And you thought I would care because? Because you're successful now. You've rebuilt everything. Maybe you understand what it's like to need a second chance." Naomi leaned back in her chair. "Brittany, I needed a second chance because you and Derek systematically destroyed my first chance. You helped him manipulate me into leaving my career. You joked about keeping me dependent. You participated in a scheme to trap me in case I discovered your affair. And now you want my help. I know I don't deserve it. But I'm asking anyway. Please. Why would I? Give me one good reason why I should lift a finger to help you. Brittany's eyes filled with tears. Because I was stupid and selfish and I've paid for it. Because I can't change what I did, but I'm trying to move forward. Because maybe you're a better person than I was. Being better than you were isn't a high bar, Naomi said coldly. You helped destroy my marriage and career for what? An affair with a married man who described you as nothing special? Smart choice. Brittany flinched. I know Derek lied to you. I also know he lied to me. He said your marriage was essentially over, that you were staying together for appearances. I believed him, because I wanted to. That doesn't excuse what I did, but I wasn't trying to hurt you specifically. I was just selfish. You're right. You were selfish. And the consequences of your selfish choices are your problem, not mine. So you won't help? I won't lie for you. If anyone calls me for reference, I'll tell them exactly what I know. That you engaged in an affair with a married colleague, violated your firm's ethics policies, and participated in manipulating his wife. That's the truth. If you want a reference that says something different, ask someone else. Brittany stood. I understand. I'm sorry for wasting your time. As she reached the door, Naomi spoke again. Brittany, you want to know why you're really struggling? It's not just the termination. It's because you made decisions based on what was easy rather than what was right. You chose an affair over ethics. You chose complicity over integrity. Those choices have consequences. Learn from them or don't, but don't ask me to help you avoid facing them. After Brittany left, Naomi sat quietly, processing the interaction. She felt no satisfaction in Brittany's struggles, but she also felt no obligation to ease them. Brittany had made choices. She was living with the results. The same was true for Derek. Through the professional grapevine, Naomi had heard bits and pieces about his life. He'd eventually found work at a small firm, doing contract law for significantly less money than he'd earned before. He'd moved to a smaller apartment. His social media presence had essentially vanished. She'd seen him once, by accident, at a coffee shop near her apartment. He'd looked older, tired, diminished somehow. They'd made brief eye contact before he'd quickly left. She hadn't felt anger or satisfaction. Just nothing. He was a person she used to know, whose choices had led him to a different life than he'd expected. Not her problem. Not her concern. That evening, she had dinner with Patricia and Angela, their regular monthly gathering. Brittany Thompson came to see me today, Naomi mentioned casually. Both women stopped eating. What did she want? Angela asked. A reference for a job application. Can you imagine? The woman who helped my ex-husband manipulate me asked me to vouch for her character. Please tell me you said no, Patricia said. I told her if anyone called me, I'd tell them the truth about her ethics violations and role in the manipulation. She left shortly after. Good, Angela said firmly. You don't owe her anything. I know, but it was strange seeing her so defeated. Part of me wondered if I should have been more gracious. Patricia shook her head. Naomi, grace doesn't mean rescuing people from the consequences of their own actions. She made choices. They didn't work out how she expected. That's life. You're allowed to move on without helping the people who tried to hold you back, Angela added. That's not cruelty. That's boundaries. Naomi nodded, accepting their wisdom. She'd spent too long in her marriage accepting responsibility for Derek's feelings, Derek's needs, Derek's life. She wasn't about to start doing that for people who'd actively harmed her. The conversation shifted to happier topics. Patricia's firm had just signed a major client. Angela's daughter had been accepted to her first-choice college. Naomi shared updates about the nonprofit fund, which had helped 18 women now and was attracting corporate sponsorships. You've built something remarkable, Patricia said. Not just your career, but this fund. You're creating real change. I'm just doing what needed to be done. These women deserve support. They deserve to be believed when they say someone sabotaged their career. They deserve resources to rebuild. Speaking of building, Angela said with a sly smile, I heard a rumor that you've been seeing someone. Naomi felt her face warm. It's very new. We've been on 3 dates. Tell us everything. His name is Nathan. He's a hospital administrator I met during a partnership negotiation. He's intelligent, kind, and he actually celebrates my success instead of feeling threatened by it. That's a low bar, Patricia laughed. Maybe. But after Derek, I needed to know that men like that exist. Nathan doesn't need to be the center of attention. He doesn't need me to be smaller, so he can feel bigger. He just likes me as I am. As yours happens to be pretty spectacular, Angela pointed out. The evening ended with plans to attend a fundraiser for Naomi's fund the following month. Driving home, Naomi thought about how different her life was from 2 years ago. Then, she'd been isolated and manipulated, believing she was failing. Now, she was surrounded by people who genuinely supported her, building a career that fulfilled her and creating opportunities for other women to do the same. Derek and Brittany's consequences were their own. They'd made choices based on selfishness and manipulation. They were living with the results. Naomi had made different choices. She'd chosen integrity over convenience. She'd chosen to rebuild rather than retreat. She'd chosen to become stronger rather than bitter. The results spoke for themselves. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. Thinking about you. Dinner this week? She smiled, typing back. Absolutely. I'll text you tomorrow with my schedule. This was her life now. Full of possibility. Full of people who valued her. Full of work that mattered and relationships that supported rather than diminished her. Derek had tried to trap her. Brittany had helped. But Naomi had escaped. And not just escaped, thrived. That was the real consequence they'd both face forever. Knowing that despite their best efforts to keep her small, she'd become extraordinary. 3 years after finding those emails, Naomi stood on the rooftop of a downtown building, champagne glass in hand, surrounded by 200 people celebrating the Empower Women's Professional Fund's expansion. The fund had grown from a small personal project into a recognized nonprofit with corporate sponsors, government grants, and a full-time staff. Thank you all for being here, she addressed the crowd. 3 years ago, I was recovering from a situation where someone I trusted had systematically destroyed my professional credibility to maintain control over my life. I rebuilt my career through hard work, incredible mentors, and sheer determination. But I also had resources. Education. Skills. Not every woman in similar situations has those advantages. This fund exists to bridge that gap. She went on to share statistics. 73 women helped. 42 now employed in professional careers. 16 who'd started their own businesses. Success stories of women who'd escaped financial manipulation and rebuilt their lives. We're not just providing money, Naomi explained. We're providing mentorship, professional networks, skills training, and most importantly, belief. When you've been told repeatedly that you're incompetent, that you have nothing to offer, that no one will hire you, sometimes what you need most is someone who says, I believe in you. You can do this. You're stronger than you know. Patricia, standing in the crowd, wiped away tears. Angela raised her glass in a silent toast. Nathan, now Naomi's partner of over a year, smiled with obvious pride. After the formal presentations, Naomi mingled with attendees. Several women approached to share how the fund had changed their lives. I was a marketing director before my husband made me quit, one woman said. Your fund paid for my certification renewal and professional wardrobe. I'm now senior marketing manager at a tech company, earning more than I ever did before. I wanted to start my own accounting firm but had no capital after my divorce, another shared. The grant from your fund covered my business license, software, and first 3 months of office space. I'm now supporting myself and my 2 kids. Story after story of women who'd been knocked down and fought their way back up. Naomi listened to each one, feeling both humbled and energized. This was why she'd built the fund. This impact. Later, as the event wound down, James Harrison approached. Naomi, incredible work. Global Med is proud to be a founding sponsor of the fund. The company's support has been crucial. Thank you. I also wanted to talk to you about something else. The board has been discussing succession planning. I'm planning to retire in 5 years. We want to start grooming my replacement now. That makes sense. Do you have someone in mind? You. Naomi stared at him. Me? As CEO. You've proven yourself exceptional at every level. You rebuilt our sales division, grew revenue by 40%, negotiated partnerships that transformed our market position, and established yourself as an industry leader. You think strategically, lead effectively, and people respect you. Yes, you.
As CEO.
That's 5 years away. A lot could change. It could. But Naomi, I've watched you for 3 years now. You don't just execute. You innovate. You don't just lead. You inspire. That's what Global Med needs for its future. Think about it. We'll talk more specifics as we get closer, but I wanted you to know you're on the board's radar for this. After he left, Naomi stood on the rooftop edge, looking out at the city lights.
CEO.
5 years from now, she could be running a major pharmaceutical company. The trajectory was almost unbelievable. Except it wasn't, because she'd earned every step. Every promotion, every success, every achievement had come through her own effort, skill, and determination. Nathan found her. You okay? You look lost in thought. James just told me I'm being considered for CEO when he retires. Nathan's face lit up. That's incredible. Congratulations. It's 5 years away. Might not happen. It'll happen. You're exactly the kind of leader companies need. Smart, ethical, strategic, and actually caring about people. She leaned into him. Thank you for supporting this crazy life I have. Your life isn't crazy. It's ambitious. There's a difference. And I love watching you achieve things. They stood together, watching the city. Naomi thought about where she'd been 3 years ago. Scared. Financially dependent. Professionally isolated. Believing she'd failed at everything that mattered. Look at her now. Her phone buzzed with a message from a number she didn't recognize. She almost deleted it, then saw the name at the end. Derek. I saw the article about your fund. Congratulations. You've accomplished impressive things. I'm happy for you. I hope you're well. Naomi stared at the message for a long moment. Derek. Reaching out after 3 years of silence. Probably lonely, definitely struggling, possibly hoping for what? Forgiveness? Reconciliation?
Acknowledgement?
She showed Nathan. What do you think I should do? What do you want to do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Then do nothing. You don't owe him a response. You don't owe him closure. You already have everything you need. He was right. Responding would serve no purpose. Derek's opinion of her accomplishments was irrelevant. His happiness or unhappiness for her didn't matter. He was part of a chapter she'd not just closed but moved light years beyond. She deleted the message. Want to get out of here? Nathan asked. I know this great late-night taco place. Naomi laughed. Tacos at 11 p.m.? Absolutely. As they left, Patricia caught her. You're glowing. This event was perfect. Thank you for everything. For believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. For giving me that first consulting contract. For being the mentor every woman deserves. You did the hard work, Naomi. I just pointed you in the right direction. Where you went from there, that was all you. At the taco place, Naomi and Nathan talked about the future. The nonprofit's expansion plans. Nathan's promotion at the hospital. A trip they were planning to Costa Rica. The life they were building together. Do you ever think about Derek? Nathan asked carefully. Sometimes. But not with anger anymore. More like, remembering someone I used to know who made bad choices. He's not relevant to who I am now. That's healthy. Took me a while to get here. At first, I was so angry. Then I was focused on proving him wrong. But at some point, I realized the best revenge wasn't proving anything to him. It was building a life so good I forgot to care what he thought. Nathan smiled. And have you forgotten to care? Naomi thought about it. About her career, her fund, her relationship, her friends, her life. Derek was barely a footnote in her story anymore. A bad chapter that had led to better ones. Yeah, she said. I really have. They finished their tacos and walked back to her apartment building. At her door, Nathan kissed her goodnight. "I'm proud of you," he said, "not just for tonight, but for everything you've overcome and built." Inside, Naomi poured a glass of wine and sat on her balcony. The city spread out before her, familiar and full of possibility. Somewhere out there, Derek was living whatever life his choices had created. Brittany was struggling with her consequences. And Naomi? Naomi was free, successful, happy, genuinely, completely happy. She raised her glass to the night sky, to second chances, to rebuilding, to refusing to stay down, to discovering you're stronger than you ever knew. Her phone buzzed. A message from Angela. "Saw your speech tonight on social media. You continue to impress. Can't wait to see what you do next." What would she do next? Continue growing Global Med. Expand the fund. Build her relationship with Nathan. Maybe eventually pursue that CEO position. But whatever came next, it would be on her terms. Built by her efforts. Designed for her happiness. Derek had forced her to give up her job, thinking it would trap her. Instead, he'd freed her to build something better than she'd ever imagined. And that was the best revenge of all.